And the reading is, I think, ultimately trying to cram it into this short space is to show that the strength in vulnerability, it is there. And that's ultimately what it is. You know, when we are vulnerable, we do expose ourselves, and it can be very, very difficult to see that. And actually, the year I was traveling in and out of America, it was like a therapy session to me, understanding these guys and speaking to specialists as we went on. I just couldn't believe it in terms of the joy, the tears, the emotions that we went through it. But absolutely every single one were just, they were just amazing individuals. And that goes from operators to spouses to you guys, specialists. It's so welcoming to share your knowledge. And that's just, it's going to showcase up in the shadows. And I just can't wait to get out there.
Welcome to the Neuro Collective Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. May Bagnell, and with my wife, May Bagnell, we are excited to have you join us as we explore the transformative world of functional neurology, mindset coaching, and functional medicine. Our mission is to provide valuable insights and practical solutions for those who are passionate about neuroscience, alternative health, and holistic wellness.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Neuro Collective Podcast. We are here with another episode and another guest. Jimmy Hill is here to interject his insights and for us to really learn more about military life and life after the military. And for those of you that are listening, if that's you or someone that you love, we want you to know that this episode really is for you to understand that there is so much available to support those of you that serve us so well. But thank you, Jimmy, for joining us. Welcome.
No, thank you for having me. And can you believe it's been over a year? Oh, well, it is a year now since I've seen you in person, which is great.
I know it has been over a year. And for those of you listening or watching, we met Jimmy. Well, you'll tell us a little bit about that, Jimmy, but I know you and your partner in filmmaking reached out to my dear husband here regarding your documentary. So why don't we start there for a moment? Tell us a little bit about your service and thank you for your service. I know that you served your country well. Tell us a little bit about that, and then how you bridged that over into the work that you're doing now.
Yeah, it's been a crazy journey and one I never saw coming, to be honest. So if we were to rewind a year ago after meeting you guys and experiencing, what you do at your centre, I was a Royal Marine Commando initially here in the UK. It's something called selection, which after passing that, you join United Kingdom Special Forces. And through that high tempo of training, ultimately you end up going on missions. And unfortunately, I was shot multiple times. So I ended up in a complex trauma unit for 3 years whilst undergoing medical kind of rehabilitation.
Sure.
That to me it was a world that I never anticipated to be in. Mm-hmm. So you imagine the education and the things that I've kind of picked up on the way. It's been some journey. And ultimately, because of that, every cloud has a silver lining. I've kind of ended up meeting you guys and a lot more specialists, if it were, out there that are looking to kind of help others. And that's what In the Shadows is all about, just raising awareness for others that might be struggling or searching for help.
Yeah. So In the Shadows is the name of the documentary, right? That'll be coming out sometime in 2026.
Yeah, so it'll be this year. So it's in the working title's In the Shadows. So the guys now are pretty much in a cave.
Literally in the shadows.
Yeah, they're literally putting the final pieces together and editing it and doing all the good stuff. But ultimately, it was about traveling the UK and the USA, interviewing tier one operators. Mm-hmm. And the reason being is, I think ultimately trying to cram it into this short space is to show that the strength in vulnerability, it is there. And that's ultimately what it is. When we are vulnerable, we do expose ourselves, and it can be very, very difficult to see that. And actually, the year I was traveling in and out of America, it was like a therapy session to me, understanding these guys and speaking to specialists as we went on. I just couldn't believe it in terms of the joy, the tears, the emotions that we went through it. But absolutely every single one were just, they were just amazing individuals. And that goes from operators to spouses to you guys, specialists. So welcoming to share your knowledge. And that's just, it's going to showcase In the Shadows. And I just can't wait to get out there.
Yeah.
Wow. Great story.
Yeah, well, it's really exciting, and we're privileged to be a part of that. So thank you for that opportunity. And I am certain that as you went through, because we got the privilege of seeing some of the behind the scenes that you would post, on social media as you were going through and truly creating this film for what it's going to be. Is there something that stands out to you? I'm sure there was a collective sense about all the operators, but is there something that stands out to you, or someone's story, you don't have to say their name, that was particularly touching to you that you would like to share?
Yeah, I mean, definitely both here in the UK and in America. I think the sense of community that's out there, and what I really love is the work behind the scenes in terms of charities. People are really putting themselves out there to help individuals. Some of the stories, I'd have a lump in my throat trying to fight back emotions, listening to these raw stories from these guys that have just spent so many years on the battlefield, doing things that you wouldn't imagine in terms of, keeping us safe at night. And then to see the other side of that is just truly, for me, I take great pride in the fact that, not pride, it empowered me, to be honest, to actually maybe talk more and open up a little bit more.
That's good.
We really find it hard to open up, and I don't think it's just men. I think it's just hard to open up just because we see it as a weakness, perhaps, and that's in male. It's a male dominated. I'm going to say it. World within the force. It's quite hard, I believe, to do it. So these guys. And the spouses, the women, are just truly amazing. Story-wise, I mean, there's so many to choose from, but ultimately, it's the support network around them, the immediate family and friends that I reckon pull most of these guys and girls out of a dark place.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Now, a lot of times when people or operators, like you say, come back from service, and they have, like you did, come back with their battle wounds, right? And some are visible and some are invisible. Right. We have the visible wounds, but then also the invisible ones where, people will come, military servicemen and women will come back with PTSD, will come back with trauma and dealing with the psychological outcomes of that. Was that part of your conversations? Is that some of the things that they were open enough to share about?
Yeah, I think so. So I was in rehab for a really long time, and I didn't realize that I pretty much had to re-educate myself, and education is key. So I didn't know anything in terms of physically, mentally, how to rebuild myself. So going through that journey was really insightful, I can say now, but it was a very difficult time. There would have been cases of depression. There was medication to cope with pain at times. With so many conditions, as you say, with PTSD, anxiety, depression, sleep issues, drug issues, alcohol, aggression, it's really hard to pinpoint. So you can't treat one condition because it's a multitude of so many. And I think that's what's really hard when trying to diagnose not only yourself, but trying to get that across to specialists, because you need so many, and then they need to be working together to ultimately help. And that's where being so open and honest to these specialists and strangers is key. I mean, I remember talking to a psychologist when I first got injured, and it was the weirdest conversation I ever had. 3 days in hospital. This strange man just walked in and pretty much, he just wanted to get to the bottom line, sign a paper and say, will you jump out this window? And I'm like, who is this? It was surreal. Maybe because I was on medication at the time, but 3 days after being hit, it was just, I can look back at it now and kind of laugh about it, but.
Well, certainly was no laughing matter at the time, but
No.
but I understand, just the cadence of your experience of 3 days off the field and then having to deal with all of that, and then very abrupt, like trying to make a decision about your condition,
Yeah, I think what made it easier for me is waking up getting hit out in Afghanistan, and pretty much 24 hours later, Christmas Eve, I land back in the UK, Birmingham, Selly Oak. And then Christmas Day is the first operation and so forth. But lying there on Christmas Day, I kind of knew my career was over just because of the physical damage that was caused through the bullets or the multiple gunshot wounds. I think I had acceptance straight away that I'd never kind of be with the guys again. And I think that kind of helped me in terms of the transition, because I only had one focus, and that was just to get my fitness back to where I could. So I just that focus. Yes, there was pressures then on my physical ability. I had only just been married about 4 months
Oh,
before,
well,
which was, I mean, that alone, I mean, them things going through my mind, that moment I got hit, I thought of my wife and I'm like, yeah, it's just really bizarre in terms of them split seconds and your mind's just racing for survival. So yeah, it really, really hard them first few days and weeks and hours to kind of process this information. But the NHS here, I was looked after really well. The medical teams, the military teams, and I really got looked after. And I don't know if it's the same in the United States. After speaking to a few individuals, some agree and some disagree.
right.
You're always going to get that. And we had that here. Some people will be felt hard done by, but others just, what you put in is what you get out. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
kind of individual I think I am.
Mm-hmm. Well, absolutely. Well, that speaks a lot to resilience, right? And the resilience of having to accept, you use the word accept, your new season of life, right? Your new direction in life. And I'm sure that wasn't easy for you, but yet you made that choice to go through that path and get to more of a resiliency. And we're going to talk more about identity and all that as we move a little more into the interview. But what I'd love to do now is we work with a lot of servicemen and women, or people who have been in service, and or even those who have not, but who come to us because they're dealing with some sort of trauma, PTSD, or things having related to the brain. And one of the things, as one of the diagnostic tools that we use is a brain map, which allows us to have an understanding of where someone is in the electrical patterning of their brain, which of course sheds light for us on how to assist this individual to help bring some more regulation to their brain, right? So as you remember, Jimmy, for the listeners who are listening to us, when Jimmy and his team were here, we had the opportunity to run a brain map with Jimmy. And actually, we did some footage behind the scenes on Instagram, so you'll see it there. But we're going to review this with Jimmy. We've had all busy schedules, believe it or not, have not done this yet. And so we're going to go over his findings and live here with you. Jimmy allowed us to do that, which was a brilliant idea. So I'm going to let Doc take that away.
Do we have the proper form signed by Jimmy to release his information?
That's it. No, we're good to go.
Somewhat redacted, so don't worry. But I do have a question right before I start explaining some of this. Jimmy, you mentioned, and I'm not sure if you feel good about it. If you don't, say, no, we'll skip that. But
No.
You mentioned that when you got hit, a lot of things are racing through your mind.
Yes.
Very few people ever are in that situation, right? And people do have other situations that are life-threatening, and they do mention things like that. Do you feel comfortable sharing a little bit about those moments or day? And how your brain was operating, what was going on?
Yeah. So, I mean, one thing the military are great at, and they're really good at training you, building blocks in terms of, when it comes to the resilience of situations and stressful environments, we layer that constantly on a day-to-day basis. So a lot of people out there truly don't understand that even though we're thank God we're not at war, so to speak, even at our hometowns, there's potential of serious injury and death in our hometowns. What these military guys have to train on a daily basis, pushing their bodies and minds all the time. So you can imagine you're firing at 100 miles an hour all the time, or 100% in them stressful states. So, you guys will know chronic and acute stresses and the difference between the two. So we have to be like athletes, where it's that acute stress that allows us to perform at that high tempo. And then we have to make sure that we have that downtime to almost reset. So being on the battlefield, you kind of eat, sleep, and repeat. And it's unbelievable as an operator what you can get used to, when it's really, really hard to kind of paint that visual for individuals that haven't been there. Because sometimes you can get lost in the moment when so many things are happening around you. It can be quite, I'm not going to say magical, but you kind of get lost in the moment of the beauty of the countries that you could be operating in, with the rockets flying all over the place. It's really bizarre in terms of the situation. But when I got hit, it was more, things did slow down completely. And I don't know whether that was my brain shutting down, or it felt like slow motion, but just the thought process was just home life and family. That was it. And then it was survival. Training kicks in and you're like, right, you need to get into cover. So trying to process that in microseconds or milliseconds is just truly unbelievable. And managed to get into cover and kind of climb down the mountainside into the guys where they're then medically kind of done their thing. And I have to say, I'm really grateful for them guys. If it wasn't for them, their training at them high tempos, they were able to perform medical intervention on me whilst actually looking after the situation, all staying calm, at times taking the mick. Sorry, I was about to swear. No, they were taking it at times. So it's kind of, yes, really impressive to see that kind of high tempo and control with the guys in them split in the moments.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. That the level of training, it's a different mindset, of course, like an athlete, like an operator, where you're training to be able to perform well under extreme situation. It wouldn't be a bad page to take to our own book as an average civilian to, in whatever way, figure out how do I stress train to build resilience for my own brain, because life has its, of course, different level, family, children, death of loved ones, finances, work, spouse, not a bad idea to take some kind of page of that and figure out how do I make that work for me so that I'd be more resilient, like a mini operator. I have a lot
operating
of minis,
your life.
a lot of minis, because just into my, how can I be the best at what I'm going to be, whatever that is, regardless of the external circumstances, and be able to go through it. I'll share this with you and I'll look at the brain map. A client said that they had a watch one time, one of the old round watches, analog, and he said it broke. And he had this thought when it broke. He wrote on the watch face, it was white. He took the hands off and he wrote "now" on the watch face. And he told me this, and I said, and tell me more. Why did you write "now"? He said, because I wanted to be reminded that every time I look at the watch, it's now. I have to live in the now. And I appreciated that. Isn't that something?
I like
so
that.
Then he made some clocks, just like, small ones, battery operating, the back inset, that on he put the hands on there, but he put "now," so that whenever you would look at it and you're thinking about the future, I'm late, think about now.
I like that.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
It's being very present.
All right, Mr. Hill, looking at your map, we look at two things in someone's brain map. We look at power levels, high or low power levels, just like powering up a phone, right? We have to charge it. Now, we know also that we can overpower things, right? When you leave them plugged in too long. So which I tend to do with my computers. Unplug your computer, but I leave it plugged in. But that's not so good for the battery. Okay. We can have high power or low power in our brain, and in different regions and in different bandwidths. So you have several different factors. And we have really 5 brain waves. So I give you the mini brain wave class. Delta brainwave is not a delta force. Delta is slow wave sleep, so deep sleep, where your brain recovers your body very much. Then you have theta, which is a little bit faster, but it's still considered slow. And that's a very meditative state, or REM sleep, very important for psychological recovery. Then you move up a little bit faster to alpha. Alpha is you're awake, you're feeling physically and mentally relaxed, probably where when you're not in the theater, you're at home, you're training, you're probably training a lot to be in alpha, because that's a really steady state where you're mentally and physically relaxed, but you're ready. Then there's beta. And beta is a very big range, getting faster and faster. High beta is like complex thinking, and mid to low beta is like movement of your body, sensory motor type of things, very basic thinking. And those are all the brainwaves are necessary and efficient. But if you have too much high beta when you're just relaxed, you usually will feel more anxious or stressed or racing thoughts. Then we have gamma at the top. Gamma is a very high frequency, very fast brainwave that is used in heightened perception and in memory binding deeply. So gamma can get damaged when we have head injuries repeatedly, concussive injuries, when we have things like Alzheimer's, dementia. That gamma and alpha can get really knocked out, which would affect, of course, memory, perception of things, understanding on these factors. So those are our 5 basic brain waves. And so we compare all of our clients' activity that we measure in an EEG, like yours, to a database. And so in comparing yours to the database, it shows that your alpha brainwave is very low power. Okay. Low power. So if you were here in the States or in the UK and we get you to somebody, we want to train your brain to increase its alpha power. And this is done a lot, this alpha training. And it improves the power metric in the alpha band So someone remains, as we age, more flexible in their emotional state. They can focus better, their concentration, and they're able to also kick back and relax when they need to. And sometimes that's very hard for people who've had exposure to different things. So that's the big takeaway, that the alpha is lowered in your brain, and there is some lowered gamma in the left temporal lobe. So basically what we're looking at is lowered power. Looking at you, talking with you, you're not a low power guy. You're filled with energy and quite vital, but yet the brain is really having to work because the power is low. It needs to be charged, so to speak.
Yeah, I get that.
So that's important. Does that resonate with you?
No, it does. And the low power thing, it's because I would, in my head, not understanding your world, is I thought I'd be more high frequency in terms of I know sometimes I do think, looking into this after this year, in terms of memory and the short term memory, but I put that down to being just so busy, constantly on the move, doing other things that, I tend to forget things. Brain fog is often mentioned now and again.
Mm-hmm.
When you do find them days where you are a bit, you just can't process the information needed to finish the tasks at hand. I mean, one of the bullets did hit the left lower side of my head, which could explain for some of the damage. And the helmet behind me, the Kevlar inside, luckily, thank God, did its job. So, but I always wondered, I don't think I ever actually had a scan in the UK to see if there was anything going on upstairs, so to speak.
Well, obviously you're very high functioning, you're very productive. That and all those metrics are very good. And we're looking not in you only, but in all the people that work with us. We want to see if we can make good better, if we can make average a little above average, make that brain come back to even a better level of performance for now and for the long term, right? That's always our desire. So I'm going to show you the second thing that's important, and you'll be able to see, you see those blue lines?
Yep.
Okay. So those blue, we talked about power. Now these lines are called connectivity. Somewhat analogous to how many bars do I have on my phone? How much connectivity do I have? And so blue indicates low connectivity, signal processing, low. In the left, frontal all the way back. Interesting, right? So you take a shot here. Thank God you're protected, you survive, you're doing amazingly. And there's some of these areas that may be related to that kind of previous injury. Mm-hmm. And yet you're high functioning. So we would say, can we improve connectivity patterns in this gentleman? Can we improve power metrics? And how is that then going to roll out for the benefit in his life? This is the value of a brain map. I like to say after you doing another show with Sean Ryan, you need to have good intel on the brain if you want to make changes in it properly.
No, I absolutely, and that's why we really enjoyed, and the stuff that you guys do, it's stuff that I can do here over in the UK, which is great. So I am really surprised to learn and understand. I want to learn so much more in terms of what I can do to improve, because longevity now is everything, and that's all I think about, having a young family. And I'm like, you know what, I want to be with my girl and boy for as long as possible, for as fit as possible, and the brain is so important. So I've got to.
When we complete all this, we're going to get you some tools that you can start doing some work at home, start training your own brain, improving those metrics, and then see what kind of amazing things happen for you.
Oh no, that's great. The mapping has just come through. I've just got it, so I'll be reading that tonight.
That'll be your bedtime reading.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, right, to learn about what our brain is doing, even though our experience might be a little bit different, or sometimes it collaborates, right, with our experience, right? So that's very interesting. And I want to just segue into, after military service, right? And, not having ever been in that myself, what I understand from men and women that I've talked to is that then the transition from being in the military and having that as one's identity, how you bridge the gap into purpose and meaning as a civilian, or maybe as another aspect of that work. So I'm more curious for you, Jimmy, like, what was that transition like for you? After you recognized that the injury was pretty much career ending in the way you were experiencing your career, what was next steps for you? Like, what was that mental game for you in making those choices?
I think the biggest thing was short term. Everything was short term, and it was the little wins. So I would always have to pull myself back because I was always thinking long term and where I might get to. But at the time, luckily over here in the UK, being in rehabilitation, I was still being paid at the time, so I didn't have to kind of focus on the finances initially, because that would have been a real big stress. But for me, it was these mini goals that would achieve big things. The purpose was really hard because I honestly didn't know what to do after, and I'm probably still going through that. Instead of kind of bouncing, but we opened up a canine rehabilitation center. The night I got injured, I lost my working dog, and that's kind of resonated with me in terms of Poseidon. Spending a year and a half in a hydrotherapy pool, and we kind of do that now for animals. So that's really resonated and stayed with me and really helped keep me focused, working with the animals and the dogs. But I always think about when I first joined the military, and I call it's like couch to 5K. We have it over here. Yeah. 0 to hero. And I always remember map reading, the first couple of sessions, and, the instructors will give you a map and a compass, and you have to get a bearing and you kind of point it in that direction. And everyone gets lost, like always, because you don't believe in the structures and the process that these guys are giving you. I think I see it's the same in life. You've got to pick a bearing, and you've just, regardless of the noise that's going on, and I have a lot of noise in my head and a lot of distractions, you've just got to stay on that bearing to the purpose that you're chasing, or whatever it is you're chasing. It's so easy to get pulled off the rails, and I'm constantly being pulled off and being put back on, and that's self-inflicted. That's just me kind of bouncing, and not probably being as organized as I should be. So yeah, really, it's really hard, and it's individual. Like, no one is the same. None of us are the same.
Sure.
I like that. Stay on your bearing. Just follow the bearing.
It is. It's got to be. I think you have to. And then that leads to the anchor. You need an anchor, something that's just going to just keep you grounded as well. And most men have it, and it's a good woman next to you.
The bearing straighter outer.
Yeah, well, I do tell people when they say, you look so young, how do you do it? I say, well, of course, maybe genetics, because everyone thinks that. Healthy lifestyle, but I absolutely 100% of the time say, my wife, our relationship is so stabilizing in my life, low stress because of who she is, doesn't cause a lot of aging. And I firmly believe that. It's like low stress relationships are very good, right? For nurturing the soul and the health and so forth, right? Yeah.
Well, thank you, honey. But, I think since he wants to have some stress resilience training, I think I need to be a more stressful wife to him. And maybe that will help.
That was not where I was going with that at all. At all.
Yeah.
So there's room to add more stress is what we have. Just teasing.
Very good.
Teasing. So Jimmy, this is so brilliant. And I love how you segued your career in the military to still work with things that you enjoyed about your service, right? The dogs, the animals, working and then into filmmaking. And I don't know that was your exact next step, but I'm curious, had you always had aspirations for filmmaking? Was this something that was part of the creative outlet of yours, or how did that come into fruition for you?
Yeah, I think it was more about, it's the message, I think. And over here in the UK, we're very, what does it say? Stiff upper lip. Like, no one really, well, people do communicate, and there's loads out there that exist. But what I like about the storytelling aspect was, one, it was innovation of kit and equipment. Kit and equipment saved my life. So I'm like, well, we need to showcase this kit and equipment for other people that are going to be looking after us, say, on the battlefield whilst we sleep at home and we're safe. So I was really kind of drawn by that. But when I spoke to the guys, I said, look, I want to create something that can lead to hope. And the idea being is, not everything I say will resonate with anyone, or everyone, should I say, but there's going to be something in there. And even when I was speaking to the guys and yourselves, there's always a little gem. And I think I need to take that home and build upon it.
Yes.
We have to keep being uncomfortable to be comfortable, like that I believe in that. And I think the stress of the body's needed. So exercise, You are uncomfortable running, but your body's going to benefit from it. It's the same with the brain, the mind. So I think we have to have the uncomfortable conversations to get better. And that's with the whole support network and the power of sharing. And the biggest one is the idea of someone sitting down and watching something for 40 minutes, for an hour. It's the escape. And I remember that when I was, before joining the military, if you had a hard day or a hard week, you could just escape into a good episode, podcast, or film, and you just forgot about the world. And that I love the idea of that. So it was it all just come together with the creativity of the guys, and we thought, right, let's do this and do some good.
Yes,
that's very good.
Well,
you reminded me of something that she has said numerous times. I feel like it's a thread in what you just said. And that is the degree of uncertainty you're willing to live with. How does it go?
The degree of uncertainty you're willing to live with will determine the degree of happiness you have in your life. And the reason why that can be true is because when we're always looking for certainty, then certainty isn't always available. So the degree of uncertainty we're willing to live with will determine our level of happiness, right? Because if we're always looking for certainty, then we're hanging that on our happiness. If I'm certain about this, then I'll be happy, right? Well, what if you can still be happy and be uncertain, right?
Yeah.
That's resilience training of your mind, right? Of being okay with it, not knowing exactly how everything's going to be. That's what we hear you saying.
Yeah, I hear that in what you're saying for sure.
Yeah, honestly, and I love that in the military. And the reason we can put ourselves into these extreme places is because we've just built from a solid foundation. Once you have that foundation, you can go anywhere. Honestly, and it's individually we stop ourselves from progressing. Yeah. But I think the big one with the stories that we hear and the conditions that a lot of these individuals have is you will hit rock bottom, and it's kind of not to be scared of it. Take on that challenge that once you hit rock bottom, there is only one way up, as they always say. And then that's when you need to start looking for the tools and the people to kind of help support, get you in the right place. And there's so much help out there. It's just having the confidence to ask.
Well said.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And one thing I want to just segue into that, as we were alluding earlier about this concept of identity, right? We work with all sorts of different people who come in and walk through these doors with chronic conditions, and, some less time, others many years in their condition. And what can happen for them is that they've developed their identity around their condition, right? And so therefore they are their condition versus they are a person with a condition. And it seems like, well, what's the difference, May? Well, the difference is that one is I have this condition that I'm working through and my body will heal with the right tools and help, right? Or I am this condition and no matter of help is ever going to fix it. Because even if a person was trying to assist me, I'm still so wrapped in my identity that I can't let go of it. And so therefore, so shedding the identity of that. And I would imagine for men and women who have gone through what you've gone through, being struck with a bullet in your head and in your leg and having to go through all of that rehabilitation, I would imagine that for some men and women, they maybe succumb to the identity of being disabled or not as able as they were before, right? Or really sink into they're no longer the identity that they once had, rather than forming an identity around something more powerful than their vocation, right? Or their condition, right? Because someone could walk through their entire life with having an ailment or a condition, but still have a separate meaning and purpose to their life that isn't that, right? So I ask you, a lot of times men and women will walk in and they have this hopelessness. I would imagine the stories that you've heard, perhaps there was hopelessness threaded through and then they found their hope, right? But can you speak to that from, I feel like if you did a course on being an operator for civilians, I think that would be like really good. Like,
sign me up.
Right? Like we would take that course, right? Because what I hear you saying, it's here. The game is here, right? Our physical bodies will go in line to what this dictates.
Yeah. And May, that it can be really dangerous. That whole mindset. That's a whole new podcast.
Part two.
Yeah, and it's falling into that whole mindset and the trap behind it. But I think in terms of Acceptance is probably what I would say. That's massive. And when people say, I'm now in the disability category, if it were, but it's more about accessibility and what we can actually achieve, who we are now.
Yes.
And I know this physically, there's certain things I can't do, but, I've still got to put myself out there. And, this year I actually did the London Marathon, which was
I was just going to say, you run marathons.
And the worst part is I said I'd never do that again, and I signed up again, and I don't know why. But more
because your mind tells you so.
Yeah, but I think that there's something, and I never know how to say this, and I get empowerment from people's discomfort, and that sounds really bad, I think, but I look at individuals that are really struggling, and I just think, you know what, actually, my life isn't that bad, my pain isn't that bad. You know what, Jimmy, get a grip, and we're going to have a great day today. And the people I mix with, some of their I won't say issues, some of their problems physically, mentally, they're unbelievable, and they're still smiling. And I'm like, you know what? I'm having a bad day, but I can get on with this. And it's just, and I never know how to kind of portray that without sounding kind of selfish or greedy, or but it does empower me.
I think it is encapsulated in the word gratitude, right? Because you're grateful in spite of your condition, you're grateful. And I think gratitude, there's a whole science about gratitude, how that elevates, how we see our day-to-day experience and how we can move forward in life in spite of whatever conditions that we're faced or situations that we face, right? That attitude of gratitude, as they say, I think is what you're saying, right? That really is that you're looking around and you say, you know what, my life is pretty darn good. I'm going to sign up for that marathon again, aren't it?
Yeah, my wife, she just left. Yeah, she just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, she's like, okay, all right.
But again, it's just okay. It's been uncomfortable, and I think we need that to kind of grow and progress.
Yeah,
it's something, and to me, it's not actually about the challenge on the day. It's actually the build up and the people I meet along the way. So if there's a running club or if there's someone I want to train with, it's because I've got something to train for. And it's definitely the journey. I mean, some of the things that have happened to me is because I'm like, I don't really want to get out of bed, but yeah, let's go see swimming this morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, or whatever it might be. And then I meet an individual for a cup of coffee, and then it turns out that we end up doing something. It's because I was able to get up out of bed, change that mindset, and get going. And don't get me wrong, I do have, days where, I am grey or moody or, depressed, if it were. But, I think we have to normalize that even more, because I believe it's a normal, natural, healthy behavior to be a bit depressed.
Yeah, an ebb and flow.
There's a lot out there at the minute about anxiety, PTSD, and depression, and we just got to take it face on or head on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think normalizing it is a good thing, to the degree that everyone can feel they have the ability to share, and there not be a stigma around that, right? And yet not normalize it so much that there's hopelessness, right? In our pre-interview, Jimmy had the most brilliant quote, which I thought was so great. And we were talking about hopelessness, and we were talking about the identity of hopelessness, right? And what happens is some people can have that identity, hopelessness as their identity, which that's really tough. But what do we want to do, Jimmy? What did you say to me when we were talking about that?
So it's to crush the identity of hopelessness. That's the plan, and we're going to do it.
That's the plan, is to crush the identity of hopelessness. And I think that is a beautiful way to finish this segment, because, anyone who's listening to this may have felt or might be feeling hopeless or love someone who's in that space. And so understanding your story and the stories of the men and women that are going to be captured in your film, which we all need to know how to access, where you are, so people can be in the know. But I think it's so important that we have stories like yours and films like yours, so that people can see themselves in the stories of other men and women, so that they can then begin to start that plan, right? Crush the identity of hopelessness that might be living in them. And you said something earlier, just a few minutes ago, which I thought was so brilliant. You said you had something to train for, right? A lot of times people say, I need something to live for. And that's good. That seems a little more like too vague, like something to live for,
Yeah.
but something to train for, I think is more tangible, right? Because it's the now. It's like, okay, I'm training for this marathon that's in 2 months, or I'm training for, taking care, doing training for dogs, to help them go to homes that men and women in service need, right? I'm training myself for something. And I think there's something really powerful about that, right? Because that's right now. And we're training for something that gives us meaning in that moment. And oftentimes that's just that little bit of lift that gets us out of that bottom, to start doing that stair step of, okay, I trained for this. Okay, what's the next thing I can train for? Maybe another marathon, like you said, or what's the next thing I can train for, right? So I really love that. Rather than something to live for, something to train for. I think that's great.
I like that, because you might say it's an up level, right? You might say, well, I think I would like to start running. Okay. But if you say, I'm going to train for a 5K or whatever, marathon, there's something up leveled about that, rather than I'd like to start. Put yourself in something so good for the brain, of course, but just wonderful for everything. Go ahead, Jim.
No, and that's it. That's living, isn't it? When we're training for something, and it doesn't have to be a physical activity. I think that brings on life, and that's what it is all about. So no, honestly, I think building this community that we have done so far, and meeting all these amazing individuals and specialists like yourselves, I think, I think there's going to be something in there for everybody. There's going to be so many takeaways, and I'm really excited for what this year brings.
We're excited.
How are people going to find out about it?
Yeah, where can they follow you so that they can be in the know when the film is ready to be premiered?
I guess it's going to be social media for now, which will be Jimmy Hill Official and Burn the Boats films, and then from there we'll start plugging it, and obviously we'll be sending you guys everything we can. And once the guys come out of that man cave all pasty and white because they've seen no sun for a while, they'll get a sunbed, and hopefully we'll have a premiere in America or something, which will be amazing.
That would be amazing. I've got his tux ready for the premiere.
Yeah, that's it. That's brilliant. Yeah, I'm going to train to fit in mine. That's all.
There you go. Train to fit in your tux. Well, this is amazing, Jimmy. Thank you for your time. Thank you for this honest conversation, and really beginning to open, more dialogue, for those, listening to this, and what's possible. Because really there's so much that's available for anyone, whether they served or didn't serve in the military, but so much support, and just being open and willing to talk about it, and being in a community, to your point earlier, how healing that is for everyone.
Wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, thank you to Michael and yourself, May, for the research and the education that you're giving us all. So, and actually to Sean Ryan for connecting us.
Yes. Shout out to Sean. Thank you, Sean.
So, no, brilliant. And hopefully we'll catch up with you soon, stateside.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you soon. Bye, everyone. Until next time, have an amazing day. And remember, you can heal.
We can help.
Take care. Thank you for joining us today on this episode of the Neuro Collective Podcast. We hope you found the insights and strategies shared valuable in your journey towards optimal health and overall well-being. Remember, your support helps us reach more people and make a greater impact. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to rate our podcast and leave a review. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but also helps others discover the wealth of information we get to offer. Don't forget to share this podcast with your friends and family on your favorite social media networks. Spreading the word allows us to bring holistic and cutting-edge neuroscience insights to even more listeners. Stay tuned to more episodes packed with expert advice, latest research, and practical tips. Remember to also follow us on your social media networks at Bagnell Brain Center across all the social media networks. Until next time, take care of your brain and stay healthy. This is May Bagnell from the Neuro Collective Podcast with Dr. Michael Bagnell, where holistic healing meets cutting-edge neuroscience.